I'm making a video. Well, by the time you see this, you will probably have already seen the video. It's a short film called My Distraction. If you guys have been watching our last couple of videos, you'll know that I'm kind of like struggling a little bit with all the things that are happening with the COVID-19 stuff. So I decided to try something completely different that I have never done before. So in this video, I want to run through all the behind the scenes stuff for that film. So basically the 3 lighting setups I use for the garage shot, the photo shoot shot, and the editing shot, and just kind of show you guys how I lit everything and then some of my thought process behind that film. So I've been super inspired lately by Craig Adams' silent hiking films. They're probably one of my favorite video series on YouTube right now. There's something about them that's just so relaxing. I feel like when I watch them, it's like an escape from reality, and they're like 15 to 30 minutes, which I love. So I decided to try a silent film, show the process of what I've been distracting my brain with lately, which is stuff out in this garage, woodworking projects, and then tying that into the things that I love to do on this YouTube channel, which is like photography and video stuff. So shooting a film, shooting photos, and making a backdrop, it's like the perfect trifecta of delicious things that I love so much. Not delicious because you're not eating backgrounds and cameras and shit. That'd be just weird. Let's walk through this lighting setup. So obviously the video starts in the garage making the background. I had a shot list planned for the film, and I had my songs picked out beforehand. So I kind of knew what the vibe was gonna be for each scene, and I really wanted it to be moody and lit different and not just like a normal garage setup. So we brought out the Aperture 120D, which is to my left, and it's got a newer softbox on it. So I'll link everything in the description box if you guys want to know all the gear we're using. So that's kind of like our main light here. I've got it turned down a little bit. And then back here, we've got these impact, what is this called? I think these are called Impact Ready Cool fluorescent lights. So I've got one here as a little background, so you can kind of see like a little bit of highlight coming through from behind me. And then I've got the exact same light put in behind the OSB there, just to give like a little bit of a glow on the wall. I didn't want it to be too dark. So that's kind of the lighting setup here. So the story I wanted to tell through the short film was the process of creating something start to finish using all of my creative outlets, DIY, photography, and video. And I called the film My Distraction because the garage seems to be my new happy place. It's almost like a little getaway within my house. And I don't know if that's because I don't see it in my day-to-day routine. I physically have to like kind of leave and go into this space that's kind of separated from the house. But it's the one place that I could kind of escape to and just focus solely on creating and not think about what's happening in the real world. And as you guys know, these days we kind of need those distractions. Doing DIY projects and working with wood kind of reminds me of old times, and it's a little bit of a comfort zone thing. It just kind of allows me to bring my brain off the things that are happening in the world right now. And that's kind of what I wanted this video to be about, was the things that I'm distracting my brain with during these difficult times. This film wasn't just a B-roll sequence. It was something a little deeper than that for me. So the process of making this entire project, the background, the photography, doing the actual video, it was more about picking up the pieces and allowing myself to create something despite not wanting to be on camera. And I was kind of thinking, how can I express myself through visuals without actually physically having to talk? And that was it. Making that film was it. And damn, it felt so freaking good to make. Okay, so let's get back into the setup, because I'm pretty sure that's why you guys clicked on this video, to see the behind the scenes, how we lit things, what we shot with. So let's get back into it. One of the most common questions I saw on the short film was, why are you using an ND filter for photography indoors? And I'm gonna let past me explain that to you during the shoot. Okay, we're on to scene 2. Scene 1 is done in the garage. So we're shooting scene 2 and 3 in this basement studio. We haven't done any soundproofing yet, hence sounds, and also the pool is on, so cool. I'm basically doing 2 lighting setups here. I'm doing the lighting setup for the video, but then I'm also doing a lighting setup for the photo. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna come a little bit closer. What I am going to do is set up the constant video lights for the video. I'm using the Aperture 120D with a newer light dome softbox right here. I've got that Ready Cool impact light in the back, and then I've got a Godox SL200 with the Aperture mini light dome just to add a little bit of fill here. That's probably gonna be what the lighting setup looks like for the video, but for the photo, I don't want this lighting setup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use flash for the photo. So I'm gonna break out my alien bees, and because I can only use a shutter speed of 1/160th of a second, I'm going to use an ND filter. So the shot that I take with the flash is not gonna be affected at all by the ambient light in the room. So I'm gonna go grab my bees and I'm gonna set that up. And then we're gonna go grab the background and start shooting the second portion of this video, which again, if you haven't seen it, like up here. So that is the lighting setup. Sync speed for my flash is max 1/200th of a second. Once I start creeping above a shutter speed higher than 1/200th of a second, I start catching my shutter. Now I wanted to shoot between f1.4 and f5.6, and maybe sometimes f8, which really only gave me my ISO left over as an exposure adjustment. So I have my ISO set pretty low, so the reason why I threw the ND filter on it was to give me another variable for the exposures. I have my flash set to a certain point. When I was exposed properly for the flash, that the ambient light in the room wasn't affecting the photo. Now I know most of the time you guys see ND filters used for video or for long exposures. In this case, it was just another variable for me to control my exposure because I could not boost my shutter speed higher than 1/200th of a second. So my B1600, this is a strobe or a flash. It's quite powerful, and I had to trigger this with either a remote trigger or a sync cable. Now I have pocket wizards, but I've kind of fried them all. They're probably all about 15 years old. And unfortunately I had an incident with some no-name batteries that kind of ruined them. And then another time I pulled my camera off my desk and cracked the receiver off the camera. So that was fun. So I don't think I can use my pocket wizard, so I'm gonna use a good old trusty sync cable. And one of the reasons why I bought the A7R Mark IV is because it actually has a sync hole, sync hole, the thing that you put this thing into. But that's one of the reasons why I bought that camera specifically for photography, and we're gonna use this strip box today. I can't even tell you, these flashes are so old. Some of them have been around since Chris and I basically got into photography. This has a sticker that says bold on it. I used to lend my friend these. He'd gather up all the alien bees that were in St. John's, all the people who own them, for shoots for commercial photography. And so I used to rent these to him. So my name, our old company, Bold Creative, the name is on there. That tells you how old this shit is. Okay, here is the final lighting setup. We've got the desk in the center. 120D with the giant softbox as the main light. We've got the Goddix SL200 with the aperture mini light dome here on the back just to do like a little hair light. So let's talk about the gear we used. A lot of people think that we shoot everything on the A7S II, that you have to have a full frame camera to get really nice shots. And guess what? Half that video was shot on the A6400, which is an entry-level APS-C mirrorless camera. So if anybody says they don't have good gear and they are shooting with the A6400, I'm calling bullshit on you. You can get good shots with that camera. In fact, half of Cold Island was shot on the A6400. In the first and second scene, the garage scene and the photo shoot scene, we used two cameras for that. The main camera, which you saw the wide shots on, was the A6400, and that was running the 10 to 18 millimeter f4 lens, and that was flying on a Zhiyun Crane gimbal. We don't use the gimbal that often, but we did decide to break it out for this film, and I'm glad we did because it's something we find just a hassle to set up and use. But for shots and for videos like that, it's worth it to go the extra effort and break it out. So that's what we did. The second camera we used for the close-up B-roll shots, the slow motion shots, which you can see here, we used the A7S II with the 50mm 1.4 lens. Now, the autofocus in the A7S II isn't the greatest. Sony has definitely improved that over the years, over newer cameras. Of course, that camera is quite old now. I think it's like 3 or 4 years old. So we do like to use that as a B-roll camera because we could just throw on focus peaking and manually focus for the shots that we want. And then both of those cameras were shooting in S-Log2, which is what we shoot all of our videos in. Now in the third scene, we have the A6400 with the 10 to 18mm on the slider, which is attached to a Manfrotto tripod with video legs and a fluid head, which doesn't matter. It's only because that's the tripod we had laying around. And then the straight on shot was the A7S II with the 51.4, which we did have to manual focus because the A7S, again, struggles with focus. And that was on the Peak Design tripod, which we absolutely love. It's our hands down, it's our favorite tripod. For the overhead rig, we had the RX107. And for that camera, we actually do not shoot log. We were shooting 1080 with PP off, so no picture profile, and we just corrected it in post to match the other shots. Of course, the photos were shot on the Sony a7R Mark IV with the 24 1.4 lens, which is my favorite lens, and I'm really digging this camera. As I mentioned before, one of the reasons why I picked up the a7R IV was specifically for photos. And some of you guys have been asking on Twitter if we're using the a7R for video, and we are not at this point in time. If we need a third camera, then maybe, but right now we specifically bought it for photography to replace the 5D Mark III. So one of the selling features for me, which is kind of a silly one, was the sync port on the side of the camera. Again, like I mentioned earlier in this video, we do have pocket wizards, which normally you would put on the hot shoe of your camera, and it would remote trigger your flashes. However, I broke all of mine, and so I was kind of stuck with the sync cable. So I am glad that I made that purchase and had the sync cable, or else I would have been shit out of luck and no way to fire my flashes. Okay, so if you guys are curious about any of the gear that we have in our kit, I will leave a link to our entire gear list in the description box below, as well as a separate post on the lights we used for this specific film. So you can check that out on our blog, beckyandchris.com/blog. The link is in the description. I don't know what the link is gonna be. Thank you guys so much for all the love on the film. I really appreciate your positive and kind feedback. I had a lot of fun making that video. Again, definitely a form of therapy for me to be able to create something that was a little bit different and to challenge myself in telling a story that didn't require talking. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when I post new videos. We'll see you on the next one. Studio is not done. It's almost done. It's getting very close. We obviously have this wall painted. You will see it Sunday. You won't see the finished thing. Obviously still working. Need to build some of them sound panels, but you know what? We're doing our best here, guys. We're doing our best. I think the heater just cut in. Yeah. Thanks for watching. This is my favorite pin. Chris gave it to me. It says, hang on, I need to overthink about it, because I overthink about everything. The future is naps because she's about to take a nap. Always tired.